So since I posted that video where I remade my first game, which was a scratch clicker, I've had a bunch of people asking me to make a tutorial on it. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. So we'll start as we do with any project, slap that create button. Now the first thing we're going to want to do is make your button. Now we're going to need two different costumes. One is going to be the idle button, and then the other one is going to be the pressed button. So now we just gotta make our button. I think I'm gonna make a little 3D button, although of course you can do your button literally any way you like. So now you made your button, you're just gonna want to duplicate that. And then for the press button, I think for my art, I'm just gonna make this go down to here. And there we go, now we have a nice little pressing animation. So now we're gonna go over to the code and we're gonna start by getting a variable. I'm going to call it points, but of course you can call it whatever you like. Then we're going to go to events. When this sprite clicked, change points by 1. And then for the pressing animation, we're going to do switch costume to pressed. But then we're going to need a weight 0. I'm going to say 0.08, although you can kind of change it to how long you want your button to be pressed down for. And then we're going to switch the costume back to idle. Although just to make sure that you don't accidentally close the project on the pressed, we're going to get the when green flag clicked, and then we're going to do switch costume to idle. So this means it'll always start on that idle costume. And then we're also going to want to do set points to 0. So now when we press play, the points should be at 0. And then when we press the button, it should do the little animation that you made. Now this is cool and all, but nobody wants to just sit here and press a button forever. So we're going to have to make our first upgrade. Now we're going to make two upgrades this video. One of them's going to upgrade your points per click and one of them's going to upgrade your points per second. Now you can design these upgrades however you like, but I've gone into the backdrop and then I'm going to make a box about that big. Now you can make your box as big as you like, but just keep it in mind that we're going to be putting variables on top of the upgrade, because that will allow us to have infinite upgrades instead of having to make a new costume for every time we upgrade something. So I'm gonna split this into two. So now we have two boxes and I'm just going to align that in the middle. Then I'm going to make some text and I'm just going to put points per click. Then I'm going to copy it over to this box. And instead of points per click, we're going to do points per second. Now there's going to be a few variables we're going to want to display here. One of those is going to be cost, which I'm going to put in this corner here. Then I'm going to put another bit of text on top of that that's going to say increase by, and then I'm going to copy that over, put it on the points per second as well. So this way we're going to have the cost variable down here, and then we're going to have an upgrade here that tells you how much you actually get out of the upgrade. But of course, all of this is just on the background. So if we go and create a new sprite, I'm going to call this points per click upgrade, and then we'll make a small box. We're going to drag it over so it's nice in the corner here, and then we're going to get a bit more text and write buy. So now we have our first buy button. So we're going to need a few different variables to make this work. One of them is points per click, which I'm just going to abbreviate as PPC. And then we're going to have points per click cost, and then we're going to have PPC increase. So you'll see all your variables over here. What we can do is right click and then press large readout, and that means no text will be displayed with the variable. So then we just have the variable on its own in its nice little orange box. Now this was the increase by, so I'm going to drag it over to where it says increase by. And then this is the cost, so I'm going to do the same large readout and then drag it down to the cost. Now your points per click you can keep up there, because whoever plays your game is going to want to see how many points they get per click. But before we start putting code into the buy button, we're going to want to go over to your button, and then where it says when a green flag clicked, we're going to want to drag over a set to block, and then we're going to want to set points per click to 1. And then where it says when this sprite click, change points by 1, instead we're going to want to change it by points per click, which is that variable we made. So now when we press play, the points per click is set to 1, and that means when we press this button, points will change by 1. But now since it's based on that variable, we can change that variable with the upgrade, and that will change how many points we get per click. So if we go back over to the buy button, we're going to have to make this buy button do some simple logic to take away the cost from the points, to increase your points per click, and then we're going to have to multiply these variables, which will make us our never-ending upgrade system. So we're going to take another when green flag clicked, and then we're going to have to reset some of our variables, which will be the cost of the points per click, and then also the increase. Now you can set these to whatever you want, but just for an example, I'm going to put the starting cost of this upgrade to be 100, and then how much increases by on its first upgrade I'm going to put to 1. And now we're going to need when this sprite clicked, then we're going to need our first if block. And then if we get this greater than block, now what this greater than block does is it compares the first value with the second value, and if the first value is bigger than the last value, then it will equal true, and if that's true, then it will do whatever is in the if block. So we're going to want to check if points is bigger than points per click cost, and if it is, we're going to want to change points by PPC cost. But obviously if the cost of the points per click upgrade is 100, then we can't change the points by the cost, because if we did, then it would just be adding 100 instead of taking away. Now there's this handy trick that we can do if we go over to the operators section, and then we're going to need the divide block, which is this one here with the line through it. And it's a line instead of a divide symbol, because this is what we use in actual coding, like in Python for example, to represent dividing. So if we drag our PPC cost and put it in that first one, then in the second one we're going to do -1. Now if we divide anything by -1, it's going to change it either from a positive to a negative, or a negative to a positive. So then if we drag that back in there, this now means we're going to be changing points by not 100, but 100 divided by -1, which is -100. And then we're going to want to get another change by block. We're going to set this to change PPC. And then of course we're going to want to change the points per click by the points per click increase. So now that I've pressed play, I may have clicked a bit to get some points, but I have more than 100 points, so now we can buy this upgrade. And when we do, we minus 100 points, and the points per click changes by 2. And now if we click, you'll see that our points go up by 2. But yet still, when we upgrade it, the cost of the next upgrade doesn't go up, and the amount it increases by doesn't go up either. So for this, we're going to want to drag over two set2 blocks, and then we're going to start on the increase variable. And then we're going to go over to operators again and get this times block, which is the one with the little star. And then again, the reason why that is because in actual programming languages, that's how you represent times. Then we're going to go back over to variables, and then we're going to drag over the increase variable, and we're going to times that by 2. So when we upgrade it, the amount it increases by will times by 2. So it'll go up like 1, 2, 4, 8, etc. And then we're going to want to set the cost. We're going to want to get another times block. And this time we're going to be using the round block. Now all this block does is it rounds it up. So say it was 1.5, it would round it to 2. But this way we won't end up with any decimal points, which is not what we want. And then we're going to need another times block, which we're going to put in the round block. And then we want the PPC cost. And then this time we're going to times it by 2.5. Now you can play around with these two numbers. And I've set it up in such a way so that when we upgrade it, it will take longer and longer to buy that upgrade. But that is the first upgrade done. So we can click our button, it changes points by 1. And then when we buy the upgrade, it increases our points per click by 2. And then it'll also update these variables, so then that'll be the cost of the next upgrade. And if I just quickly get up to that number, then we buy it again, you'll see it'll keep on going up. Now for the points per second upgrade. Now we can actually duplicate our buy sprite here. And we can duplicate it in this case because we're going to be using much of the same systems, just slightly altered to increase the points per second instead of the points per click. Although for this we're going to have to make its own variables again. So the first variable we're going to want to make is the points per second. Again, I'm just going to put that as PPS just for simplicity. And then points per second cost. And then points per second increase. So now we're going to do the same as before. We're going to go to each of our new variables and we're going to put large readout. Although we're not going to do that for the points per second because that's something people are going to want to see. And in fact, I'm going to Just pop them along the top here. Then we're going to want to drag over our cost variable, try and put it roughly in the same place compared to that one. Then we're going to do the same with the increase by. And now everywhere here that you see it says PPC, or points per click, or whatever you called yours, you're going to want to change that to your new points per second variables. So for example, here it says PPC cost, we're going to put that to PPS cost. And then we're going to do the same with every variable. Now with these ones, you can do a right click, and then you'll have a list here of all the other variables that you can switch it to, and then you can just do it that way, which makes it a lot easier than dragging them all in again. So I've switched them all over. So instead of the initial cost being 100, I think I'm going to change this to 200. But I'm going to keep the points per second increase to 1. And then I think I'm going to change this one to 2. Just so it's a bit easier to actually buy this upgrade. Because obviously since it's more expensive, we're going to be upgrading it less. And then just for aesthetic reasons, I'm going to go into the backdrop. And I'm going to give us a nice background. So now we can upgrade the points per second, but the points per second don't actually do anything. And then at the bottom of this, when green flag clicked, I'm going to put a forever block. Then we'll go over to variables. We're going to have to change points by points per second. And we're going to go over to control, and then obviously we're going to have to change that once every second. And it just occurred to me, we can drag this in just under here, that we haven't actually sent the points per second to 0 when you first start. So if we start clicking, and then we'll buy our first upgrade. Now our points per click is 2, and now that we have enough for the first points per second upgrade, we can buy that, and then we're going to start getting a point every second. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you make a basic clicker game. If you've got any questions, then let me know, I'll do my best to answer them. If you haven't seen that video that I mentioned in the beginning, then definitely go check that one out because it is a banger. But if you like this content and you like more kind of entertainment-based content, then go check out some other videos on my channel because this channel isn't just tutorials. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next devlog.